Hello, everyone, and my mum. Excited today. Well, really excited. I have the honour of channel royalty. So, Sir Paul North is joining me. It's his first podcast since making the move to Zen as the MD of their partners wholesale division. So, really excited to talk through his journey. He started working in a hotel as training manager a number of years ago. He's progressed. I don't think there's a role in wholesale that he's not done. Be comfortable, uncomfortable is probably how I would focus on when we're going through what he's going to say. So it's an absolute pleasure. I hope you enjoy it. Available usual suspects in terms of Spotify, YouTube, various forms on there. So hope you enjoy. Thank you very much. Sir Paul North, knighted king of channel, in my humble opinion. I'm really excited for this because your first podcast since your new role.
It is indeed, yeah.
Which is a exclusive. We rarely get exclusives on during the channel, so I'm absolutely delighted with that. Also, our paths crossed a number of years ago when I was the best ever account manager you've ever had when you were at Altnet. But I'm really excited to get you on because whenever we talk about, or I think about channel, invariably you come up in terms of either businesses you're working at or your view on the wholesale market, resellers, MSPs and all that kind of stuff. I think your entire career, bar a little bit of working in a hotel, has been spent fully in the channel. So you're not like to me that's done a bit of direct, bit of this. You've always worked with partners at every level. So I'm really interested to tap into that. You're from Costa del Telford, which is, I fell in love with that place a number of years ago. You've worked in an environment where probably unusual to be in a tech business within Telford, where most is kind of your Manchester.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
London, Leeds, or now Rochdale, I suppose.
Yeah.
Give that big up. But before we kind of get into that, grew up Telford sort of area?
I did,
Sort of
yeah.
Shropshire.
Take a step back and say thanks very much. That was a very kind introduction. Really appreciate it. And yeah, we've known each other for the best part of a decade now.
Coming up,
Since your time working at Virgin when I was at Altnet.
Yeah.
So
I think you were sales manager at Altnet.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, Altnet at the time was a fully wholesale business, but you didn't have network as such, obviously incorporated into City Fibre, but it was very much 1,000 partners, salespeople, marketing, your own knock. And you started as in technical answering.
I did, yeah. But yeah, well, we did that. Our claim to fame was that we were the first to do BT's WBC network, the 21st Century Network, when ADSL2 was launched, up to 24 megabits per second. So we had 20 super pops across the UK, as we referred to them as. But yeah, anyway, I think, in terms of the journey and working with yourself, great to be here. Thank you for inviting me to the podcast. I've been really looking forward to today. It's been a while coming, I think. We've flirted about the idea.
I've been stalking you ridiculously, and then I managed to speak to your PA, who spoke to their PA, and then I got hold of you.
We got the deal done.
Yeah. It's cost me a fortune, but I'm happy with that. So
thanks.
Growing up,
yeah.
Formative years, because you are probably one of the most energetic people in channel. I'm assuming, might be wrong, during your kind of high school sort of stuff. What, if any, sort of entrepreneurial business things did you do? Because I'm pretty sure there will be some snippets within there.
I did lots of things, yeah.
So here we go.
Yeah. I was quite an enthusiastic young person, I think. Probably some of those flares that showed in the early years. I used to, on the way to school, go to the market and buy sweets and yogurts and things that were going out of date and buy them in bulk and then sell them on the playground at school. Loved doing that. I used to... What prompted
you to do that? So is that you're kind of looking at it going, there's an opportunity here? Was there a demand from people? Was the school a rip-off in terms of the cost of stuff? Where did you see that sort of...
It was that, yeah. I mean, you could buy things, snacks, biscuits, cakes in the school canteen. And I thought, well, I used to have to get the bus to school. I got off at Wellington Market, which was in Telford. And then it was about a 15-minute walk to school from there. And I thought, wander through the market. Used to buy myself some sweets in the morning. And then thought, I can buy, 50 frubes that are going out of date for £1 and sell them on the playground at 10 or 15 pence each. So that was something that I did. And I also used to hire out my Game Boy games as well. So I used to have a little rental service where I'd hire them for the weekend or for the week.
See that? So we had James Drake on, the owner at Eclipse, and he had a rental of books.
Yeah.
So you're renting out Game Boy games.
Yeah. And
So what did you do? Did you have a little book and you were like, right, you've got Super Mario?
I did exactly that. Yeah, I had a little book and I'd lend something out for like a week or a week and a half or a weekend. And then, I used to do the selling like food and drink.
Did you have late fees?
I didn't have late fees actually, no. But it is really interesting because when I went on to do IT at college, one of the parts of the coursework was in development, which back in the day was Visual Basic. And the first project that we had to do was create a VHS and DVD rental software. And I thought, great, I can use my my prior knowledge of blending out my game.
I can get my illegal business and I can turn it into something greater. Because it was art as well, wasn't it? Art and tech.
I did multimedia. Yeah, so that was really good. At the time, that was actually creating videos and games in Flash, which, RIP Flash. Apple killed that off.
So, but then you didn't go to university.
I didn't.
So my stalking of you, was that a conscious decision where you said, because a lot of time when people do anything tech related, etc., they'll go to a university of some sort or a large multinational business where they'll kind of learn those skills and add that in. And particularly like someone me from a Northwich background or from you from Telford, they'll invariably get pulled into a big city. Was that like, what was the reasoning behind you kind of going, I want to start working and earning my stripes, and what drove that?
So at school, when we had to choose GCSE for year 10 and 11, I chose business studies and IT, and I also did cooking as well because I'm really into cookery.
I did food tech as well.
Food tech, yes, I did that. And I always really wanted to get into IT, so that was a career path that I wanted to do. And at the time, I was really into tinkering on my PC at home. My stepdad would often we'd go to computer fairs together and buy parts and build PCs and things. So I always wanted to get into IT, but it was primarily into either kind of network engineering or software development is what I was really interested in at the time. So I went on to Telford College to do an AVCE, it was called at the time, in IT and multimedia. Really enjoyed the networking side, really enjoyed the software development side. I enjoyed most of it, to be honest. However, at that time, I got a part-time job at a hotel and started to earn a little bit of money on the side, doing evenings and weekends. And then probably quite similar to some of the other podcasts I've listened to where people have, start to earn a little bit of money and you get quite excited by it.
Because and I mean no offense at all to people who have a real software technology love, but in my experience, and I know this isn't always the case, is sometimes they are not the most outgoing and personable characters. So with your interests and your personality, to my ignorant brain, they don't typically line up. Normally they like that stuff, but they don't want to be meeting new people, networking and stuff. So you're kind of talking there in where you've got the technical side that you love, but then through the hotel and cash and that other part of you, the outgoing entrepreneurial side, is starting to come to the fore, if you like, as well as the technical bit. Is that kind of fair to say?
Yeah, it was absolutely. The hotel that I worked for was a small family-run business, 12-bedroom hotel, had a really nice restaurant at Rosette Awards, and so I worked there for a period of time, and then I got the opportunity to do a kind of trainee manager course with them and live in the hotel for a short period of time, for about 6 months, which was great because I met all sorts of manner of people, great social skills, learned an awful lot about, I had to do everything really.
Your business as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Profit, gross profit.
Exactly that. Yeah, working with a chef on buying
sales,
things in. Yeah, helping with the menus. Just all sorts of different things. So it gave me a really kind of nice, broad experience of different things. And running the IT. They had one PC behind the behind the check-in desk and a phone in each room. But I think I did that for probably a year and a half. But I really wanted to get into IT, and I think that point of the sliding doors moment in my life, and I've spoken about this before in general conversation with people, is I wanted to get onto the ladder. So I saw 2 roles advertised at the time in technical support. One at Epsom, because they've got a huge HQ in Telford, still there today, massive complex, and one at Internet. And applied for both roles and got offered both of them at the same time. The Internet one was actually a little bit less money than Epsom, but I thought I really liked the idea of supporting internet services, and it was quite a broad product set, domain names, hosting, servers, rather than printers. Didn't seem exciting to me.
And a smaller environment, I guess, in terms of the business itself.
it was much smaller at the time when I joined Internet. I can't remember how many staff there were now, maybe about 30 or so, 40 at most. And so I did when I joined Internet, I did that technical support role for a year. And during that period, engaged with both the head of our network operations center at the time and the head of development, and was quite keen to understand what would I need to do to go into one of those roles. And I think that there was a couple of things that probably put me off as I started to read some of the books, which at the time was it's a lot different to how I'm sure it is nowadays. It's 20 years ago.
AI does it all now. Anyway.
Yeah, that's it. And there was a lot of reading to do on PHP and different languages, or on networks, on doing Cisco, CCNA, etc. So started to read a little bit of that, but I just found that actually I wasn't as interested in it as I thought I was going to be. And then there was just by chance opportunity, I got offered a secondment in sales for 3 months, and did that and thought, wow, I really enjoyed this. And it was kind of a bit of a light bulb moment, really.
And also, is there a little bit of an element of you're looking at the salespeople making commission and that financial side's kicking in a little bit, where you're drawn to that world a little bit, as well as the sort of moving away from the, if you like, textbook of coding and things, whatever that may be?
I think the part that I really liked was just being able to engage and talk to lots of people. I don't think I was actually as aware of the salespeople at the time when I was in technical support, because the office was kind of partitioned off. So you had technical support on one side, sales and what was customer service and billing in the other, and then network operations was just in another room on a different part of the building. So I think probably what was more exciting was I got offered this opportunity and how it was shared with me. So at the time, Internet was part of a bigger group called Enter Technologies, which was a hardware distributor, and it was turning over £100 million a year. And they had literally a gold mine of contacts in a CRM called Goldmine, and they were all different small IT companies. That, everything from your kind of family-run PC shops all the way up to large retailers and e-tailers. And the task that I was given was, can you speak to these IT businesses and look to try to get them to resell broadband services? And for each one that you do, we'll get £10 for doing it. You have a trial for 3 months and do that. So I thought, that's quite exciting. Got this big list of literally thousands of IT businesses, and just got to sit there and pick up the phone and try and engage.
Are you the only one doing that?
So there was kind of like desk-based account managers at the time, but they were mostly working the small partner base that we already had, and leads that were coming over from Enter Technologies for the ones that wanted to sell. So they didn't have anyone in a cold calling role.
That's what I mean. So because a lot of resellers, the challenge when I speak to the owners have is opportunity creation. And winning either new customers or new wholesale partners. And invariably, it requires that proactive bit of picking up the phone. And some people will say numbers game. There's all different people that will go, it's not a numbers game, you need to do this and this. And the leads come in and it just pay me 10 grand a month. What drove you to just repeatedly pick up the phone and to work through that? Because it's so hard as a salesperson starting out in those roles. It gives you the values, in my opinion, that propel you. But it's very hard to sit there, cold call, while you've got, particularly in wholesale, people around you whose partners may be ringing them up saying, can I have this? Can I have that? And they're obviously, I've got this order, and you're kind of starting at the bottom rung. Were you aware that, people call it, Andy Tatlock, our COO, calls it shit eating, as disrespectful or respectful as that is, because both of me and him have been through them roles, where you have to earn your stripes, get told no a lot, have that inner discipline. What drove you through that first period where you sat there and it's bang, bang, bang?
Well, I think you've hit on a couple of good points there. So earn your stripes is something that a couple of my best mentors over the years have always said to me, that they think it's important to come through the ranks in that respect. So that's something that I have followed through as well throughout my career and do believe in. But I think it was genuinely the adrenaline and the excitement of speaking to these businesses, talking to them about the product set, getting them engaged in the idea of selling broadband as a service. Some of them actually did sell broadband already, but with another wholesaler, which there wasn't that many at the time. And some didn't do it at all. So I think it was when you got them to do it, and we had this really archaic CRM that was built in house that was like really basic, and you'd see their name come through and their first order placed, and you just it was like it's like a hit. It's like really like adrenaline, and you just be really excited. And I think, oh, I got £10 for that, and they're like, right, ring a few more, and like,
is it the buzz of achieving, winning versus the money?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like listening to some of the other people you've had on here as well, I think for me, the one thing that always drives me is I am quite a competitive person, but it's more achieving than winning. And that's the thing I've always carried from my career. I just really like to achieve in all things in life, really, like in hobbies and everything else. It's not necessarily about being the best or competing and winning against everyone else. It's more so achieving and being better tomorrow than I am today. And I think that was where. And as well, it was a cold calling role, but it was relatively warm because they'd bought some hardware off Enter Technology. Some of it they might have not bought any hardware for a year, so there wasn't lots of painful rejection. I think that might have been very different if I was, speaking to 100 businesses a day to try and sell them broadband directly, and only one of them went ahead with it. Then perhaps that might have been be a bit go a bit more stoic there. Whereas this was, you were getting multiple successes a week, quite a lot actually. I think did nearly 70 in the first 3 months, and then
it's mad how that you can remember that. How many
68
years?
I did actually, but I thought
how many years ago are we talking?
So that was 2007.
2007.
Yeah.
So 19 years. You can remember the first quarter, and I think it's always a important lesson I would say to salespeople. That first role, that first discipline, nailing that can really propel and give you a lot of core values that you lean back on.
It really can. I remember a lot of those key milestones throughout my career. Another one that really stands out to me whilst we're on it, and you might listen to this, you never know. First ever lease line I sold was to Tom Bibb, who runs Exascale. So he lives Exascale are based in Telford, and that was when I was only allowed to sell broadband in my initial role, but when I got promoted a couple of times and I was on the team that was allowed to sell Ethernet, which was a big deal back then. I again did quite a bit of cold calling and managed to speak to Tom, who worked at a company called Premier Software at the time, and that was my first Ethernet deal. And again, I still remember how I felt getting that first deal.
That business off.
Yeah, thinking I'm part of they were called sales consultants at the time, the team were, and we were sales executives. So I thought, I'm one of them now.
It's that stage up, isn't it? I remember when I was working at Virgin, you had kind of the men in suits, if you like, at the time, with the field sales enterprise, and aspirationally, when you're desk-based, you look at those people and go, that's where I want to go.
It was definitely
achieve that. I want the BMW or whatever, or I want to actually have that status within a business where I'm achieving those things.
Yeah, we only had, I think there were 2 desk-based account managers, so they at the time wouldn't have been called that, but just account managers in Internet. But we had a few field-based who were called like sales consultants, so they would sell. Crikey, back then it would have been like early MPLS, IPVPN, co-location, transit, and lease lines. And this is when you were still selling 2 meg lease lines for £900 a month, or 10 meg lease lines for about the same price. And there was quite a mixed bag across that team, but there was one who's still one of my closest friends now, and see him very often, who was had a similar personality to me. He was quite enthusiastic, and he was really passionate about sales and about customers, but he was really hungry and ambitious, but he just wanted to achieve as well. And so I really, really looked up to him at the time, and he would often, we'd go out for a beer together, or he'd say, this, you could do really well in this industry, here's how it can work, etc.
What were the biggest lessons you learned in those early days in terms of, because going into kind of a sales environment, and some of the guests we've had, and you've mentioned a few kind of the mentor sort of figures.
Yeah.
Was there anyone that kind of took you under their wing? And because, you'll probably cut this bit out, but the Paul North I heard about in those days was really enthusiastic, but really kind of
fiery. You don't have to cut it out, it's fine.
There's a glass of water there that I think I know someone that will mention that. But were there any points during those years where someone's kind of helped refine or opened up? Because looking at your time at Internet, and probably every role you've had, to be fair, has been continuation and progression within those roles. Unfortunately for Richard at Zen, this is potentially, I think, the next step for you is, but every role you've progressed and within there. So what's kind of, do you always want to achieve and progress, or was it sort of someone's kind of taken you under the wing and seen a skill set and gone, actually you could do this? Or
Yeah, I've always wanted to achieve and progress, but I think no, there's been numerous people throughout my career that have been great in terms of giving me the right direction. So think about that guy that I mentioned in sales. So he worked at Internet. His name was Jason McManus. He's now left the industry and set up his own business, which is great. But he was very inspirational in terms of what a good salesperson can look like, and that hunger and ambition, and how to manage complex contracts and customers. So that was really good. I probably then had some sales managers in quite a short space of time within Internet, but a real turning point for my career was when Steve Barclay joined the business.
Love Steve.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and so and he was brilliant in terms of he's a true leader in the sense that he always just wanted the best for his people. And we'd sit in one-to-ones together, and he would give me great feedback on some of my strong points, but also on here's where you can be a bit tighter, and you can. Yeah.
He said to me once, and I've always thought of this. He said, it's like a little bit of a mantra. I know there was probably a few. You probably remember, you'll recognize this. Praise publicly.
Yeah.
But if someone needs resetting, or if there's a criticism or anything like that, do that privately.
Yeah.
So that individual, you can really cement their learning, and you're not kind of demotivating them in front of people.
Yeah.
And you're trying to create that environment, I guess, for a team.
I think it's hugely important, and I think that's just that is good leadership. I mean, I made that mistake early in my sales management career where I didn't criticize someone, but I pulled someone up on something in what was an open plan office at the time, and probably just there were people around that then heard it, which then embarrassed that individual and upset them. And quite quickly I realised, crikey, I've made a huge mistake there. And how would I have felt if someone had done that to me? And Steve would never do something like that. And I look at some of those great leaders that I've worked with, and I thought, okay, I need to have a think about that. And that was quite an important point. But I think I took that first management role on when I was 26, 27. I think I've come a long way in the last 10 years of that. So
you'll have managed people, and I know the people a lot are still in the industry, so I mean zero offense with this, but they were a fair bit older than you.
Yeah.
With greater sales kind of achievements, just purely because they've been in the industry longer. How was it managing people that you're 26, going, right, we want to do this, want to put my stamp on it, and they're maybe 40 plus years old, they've worked in the industry a long time, set ideas on how they want to operate? How did you kind of approach that?
I think that I was certainly apprehensive going into it as well. So I think twofold, actually. I think when I first went into the sales management role, I'd been chasing that for years, and I'd gone from, that account exec, account manager, lead account manager.
You'd left a trainee hotel manager job, and you wanted that power back.
Yeah. Well, so then I got to the sales manager role because I think probably I just saw that as the pinnacle of where I wanted to get to in achievement. And then when I went into that role, I think that probably in my first couple of months, I just wasn't a great sales manager, and it's like probably that classic thing of where I'd been a great salesperson, but then didn't really make that transition immediately into sales management. And I made a couple of mistakes, like I just said, in terms of the that one in front of others in the office. But I think also on that point of, I was quite nervous about that around people being older. I think I went for a lot of life where everyone just had to look really young all the time. I've always had like a young face. So I think that's always been something that people always think, oh, you know.
I have the opposite face to you. So I've aged like a pear, and you're Benjamin Button.
Oh, well, I think I definitely have now, especially like last few years working in high intensity altnets and things, which we'll get onto that later. But it's
flipping through that. Sorry to cut you, but
no, it's all right.
You've got the kind of going into the management and that.
Yeah.
Management and that. But obviously, kind of you fast forward for your other roles, you've gone from kind of a manager to director roles within a number of businesses into boardrooms and things like that. Was that similar feeling to your first managerial role in terms of, do I belong here? Am I saying the right things? How do I fit in? Or are they totally different in your experience in terms of going into a sales manager role to kind of board positions, etc.?
Yeah, I think going from sales manager to head of sales, I didn't have as much that apprehension because it was almost a natural progression. I'd done it for quite a while, and I'd refined my leadership style and my management style, and went on actually a fantastic course called The Aspiring Leader with like an external company that Internet brought in, and that really helped change some of my mindset on things. I think I went into the kind of head of regional sales role. Again, that was quite similar to what I'd done. I think the biggest thing was when I joined Giganet as head of channel, and it was taking the experience from the last 16 years in internet, city fibre, etc., and going and being on my own to go and create a channel from the ground up. That I was nervous but excited going into that, because I thought, right, okay, I really feel like I can do this, but there was apprehension.
I was looking at your career on the outside, and when you made the move to Giganet, you didn't relocate as such, but you relocated Monday to Friday pretty much to the South Coast. So there's, and for those listed, Paul is a legend who, instead of getting a hotel, you rented someone's cottage.
Yeah.
So they were in London during the week.
Yeah.
And you went there during the week.
That was it.
Swap. I mean, I assumed you changed the bed in, but such was you. But what were the biggest lessons you saw? Because we're seeing in the altnet sector a number of altnets who are, and we have seen, where they were essentially a direct business who hired 50, 60, 70 direct salespeople.
Yeah.
And that was their route to market.
Yeah.
And then the advent of investor cash and needing more connections and realizing that consumers want choice, they're then looking, going, right, we need a wholesale function. My personal experience of that has been to see businesses and they say, we now do wholesale, great.
Yeah.
When you went into that role, what sort of lessons did you learn that you perhaps didn't think you would learn going into it? Because you went into launch wholesale, build it, sales function, marketing. What other bits did you that became, these need to be within my sort of thinking that perhaps weren't before?
So previously, all my experience had mostly been in sales, so internet and city fibre. So I think then joining Giganet and taking on that head of channel role, whilst I presented a plan to the CEO at the time, I joined the business and he said, you've got 3 months to create a strategy for everything that it would have involved the channel section and present it to the investors in London with me. So that was then, going from just having to own sales targets, sales commissions, sales budgets, to then having to own in the marketing budget, to having a look at how we need to resource it for service, for delivery, etc. And actually, I joined the business when I joined it at the time was a vertically integrated ISP as part of an altnet. So wholesale, there was only half a dozen people in the business that had any experience with wholesale, if that. So for me, it was really difficult, because going in there, I felt a little bit alone, I would say, in the first couple of months. And I'm happy to admit that, because it was quite, I heard someone say before, it can get lonely the more further up you go, and the higher you get to the top, because you don't have as many people to share things with, because you're also expected to have a lot of the answers and things like that. And whilst I had a strong plan for a vision for what I wanted the channel to look like, trying to then go and get everyone on side within the business, or not necessarily on side, but to get them to give time and effort into what was my plan and the vision for the channel strategy was hard yards in the first 2 or 3 months. And I had a couple of nights where I thought, crikey, this is more than I thought.
Because you haven't got when you're launching something, you can't turn around and say, I need your time because we are producing these results business. You need to invest this cash. You're doing this. You're kind of saying, here's my plan. It will produce this, but I need you to buy in and take that. And you've it was interesting as well when you talk about it. And a lot of businesses, when they're looking at wholesale side, you've come from a business in, obviously we've kind of skipped it over a little bit, but internet acquired by City Fibre, scale and everything changed overnight as a business, but still fully wholesale, as Mr. Wilson would get pains to tell me, to a business where you're almost a lone voice at the start, where it's your wholesale, but business don't really care. They're kind of direct selling connections. So what sort of resilience did you lean on there? Because you're used to being in a City Fibre where it's wholesale business.
Used to be in the business where you got a few hundred people around you that all worked in wholesale as well for a lot of their career, and especially at internet.
You're not having to justify the concept of wholesale.
So whilst it was quite challenging in those first 6 to 8 weeks, and I did, sometimes I'd go back to my little Airbnb in the evening and think, right, I really need to think about this next step. where it started to come together, I thought I approached it a bit sales really. I've got to go around the business and get people on side to this idea. And so I did an all hands presentation where I presented on my vision for the channel strategy and what it could look like for GigaNet over the next 3 to 5 years. Got everyone in the business onto that from all over the UK, and just essentially went through what started right from the start. What is the channel? How many businesses are in the channel? What do the different sectors look like? What what was an MSP? What's a telco? What's the opportunity for us? And went through the who, what, where, why, when, how, and what the strategy would look like, and what it meant for GigaNet, and how people's roles would kind of contribute towards it. And that did wonders. That was brilliant. After that, I got quite a few Teams messages from people saying, "This is really exciting. How can I be involved? What can I do to help?" And one person that was really good in it all. Well, 2 people actually. So one was someone who went on to become an account manager of mine, a guy called Dale. He was great. And then there was also...
We love Dale.
Yeah.
Friend of the pod.
Yeah, and there was also a chap called Mike who ran the software development team at the time. And so he had lots of ideas around how we could create a channel portal quite quickly, utilising some of the API work we'd done into City Fibre and our own infrastructure, etc. So we built a very good friendship, I would say, and partnership. And so he would work alongside and say, what feature do you want next?
We're GigaNet aware of the sort of asks that you would need, or was it a case of you're kind of opening their eyes a little bit as you joined and growing the role, going, actually, I need some cash for a portal, I need this,
yeah,
I need that. Were these sort of things you've had to justify with internal stakeholders as well as...
Fully had to justify, yeah, had to build the business case for it all, which was, again, had full support from the CEO and the CFO at the time. So I had to build what was the business plan to say, in year 1, this is what we need for headcount for sales and for how much we need for service and what we need for the marketing budget. This is what year 2 will look like. This is what year 3 will look like.
Was it frustrating working in at the time a direct business? And when I say direct, I guess people are saying this is the business primarily added customers through contracting with them, end user. Was that frustrating for you from coming from wholesale, or were you it's just another challenge to overcome?
It was just another challenge, yeah. I wouldn't say it was frustrating. It was more so, how can I get some of this resource? I've got all this great, to your point before, it was at a time when there's lots of money going into altnets, especially on things like marketing and awareness. So I thought, if I can just get a little bit of this resource, the time and the money to help build what the vision was for the channel, then that would be great. But it wasn't frustrating. I just saw it more of a challenge. And what I would do is just go around the office, spend half an hour, people book one-to-ones with them to just look at how we can start to build a bit of a relationship, get them on side, get more of their time and resource to invest into it.
You've learned them lessons through being in the tech desk, starting there and seeing how good salespeople interacted, I guess, with the function you were. Because you're making that move from City Fibre, and if you look at City Fibre leadership positions, they're still the same leadership position. It's not a business that lops and changes people at a senior level. So it's probably a fair assumption that I can say that you would still be in that role now if you'd wanted to stay there, but you've kind of wanted to push yourself and progress up into, getting the head of role, prove yourself. And they're not common roles that come about.
They're not at all. And the industry gets smaller. And
you
funny
have
on
to
that,
catch your food first, don't you, before you eat it?
You
it's
do.
Not given to you.
Yeah. And hopefully, I think I mentioned to you earlier, I was listening to Andy Wilson's one again yesterday, he's a good friend of mine. And he'll probably laugh if he listens to this, because I sat down with Andy. He joined the business as sales director at City Fibre. I was head of sales at Internet. I then became head of regional sales for City Fibre, which is great. Loved working with Andy, learned a lot from him. And I remember sitting in the one-to-one saying, I want the next thing. I want to achieve the next step up. And he's like, well, that's kind of my job. He said, sometimes you have to leave to go up. And that was exactly what he said.
Well, he did exactly that. If you look at an Andy Wilson, he was a head of at Virgin.
Yeah.
Wanted to do what you did, but he couldn't do that within Virgin at the time. So he's made the move to City Fibre, and, he's still smashing it.
That's it. Well, then when I saw that there's quite a few of a couple of my old contacts from Internet were working at GigaNet at the time, and then this opportunity came up, and at City Fibre we were working closely with GigaNet, and I thought it's a great opportunity to join that business on a really exciting trajectory, and they were looking to go into the wholesale market. So I put myself forward for that head of channel role, and then when I got it, and then I went back to Andy and I said, right, sorry, here's my resignation. I'm joining GigaNet. And he said, I didn't mean you to take it literally, Paul.
I'll bloody replace you now. It's a nightmare. People will think that it's my fault. No, and so that journey there, and obviously you kind of touched on it there. So we had, probably at that time, you had GigaNet that was I mean, people talk about the market now as lots of different wholesalers, lots of different altnet fiber providers. It was really, funding wise, wasn't really difficult for businesses to get funding. Then Giganet had a few $100 million at least, maybe more. And then you had other businesses, same funder, all that kind of fun stuff. At what stage did you kind of get exposed to the financial element of the altnets, where you're seeing funders go, right, we need this many on-net connections in order for that return. We've got 3 altnets that we fund. We should maybe put them together. Or is there, at what point did you start thinking, crikey, this is a bit different to individual connections or partners? This is the politics, I suppose, to a higher level on it.
It's a really good question, because I think that going back to that piece around you learn a lot more when you go to different businesses and you gain more experience, So, and this might be a slightly long answer to the question, I think, and it's probably important to it though. I used to always say I would have stayed at Internet forever because I loved it. I had a great career there, had a lot of friends there, knew it inside out. But then when the news broke of City Fibre acquiring Internet, I was quite upset at first, because I thought, it's the Internet that I've known and loved for all these years. But sat down with Elsa, who taught me through what the opportunity was, and then straight away just saw the sales opportunity there. Right, I'm really excited about this now. But then starting to get exposure to, Internet, it was very much, we want to grow a little bit each year. We might launch 1 or 2 big products in a year, or launch a new monitoring platform, whatever it is, to then working in an environment where it's about building and filling a network and driving penetration and looking at, the paybacks over 10, 15 years. And it was very, very different model, and metrics was really eye-opening for me. And I thought, this is really quite exciting and very interesting. And my brain was lit up with kind of all of that information. And then going to join Giganet, which, back to your earlier point, a lot of those altnets were quite similar at the time, all got around £300 million funding to build to about 250,000 homes and businesses. Giganet was part of 3 with Jurassic Fibre and Swish under Fern. So I think then joining Giganet, because I then sat on that senior leadership team, I was even more exposed to things like, the cost per premises passed, how many homes we need to pass each week. And it was more so a focus on homes passed back then, like we touched on before, rather than on take up as much. And so I felt like I worked very much at an infrastructure business as well at Giganet. I think City Fibre felt like that, but because we had all of the 900 partners of Internet still, and then the original City Fibre launch partners, I still felt like I was working at a wholesaler. Whereas when I was working at Giganet, it felt more like I'm working at an infrastructure company that's now trying to do service provider and wholesaler on the top, which again was great, because it just gave me more experience and exposure to different types of business models than I'd seen before. And
I think a lot of these businesses who were infrastructure kind of first, from a sales point of view, how much did they need to learn quite quickly to function in the channel, if you like, coming from a core, well-established channel machine that has marketing, sales, account managers and all that kind of good stuff, versus someone that's built something that's amazing but needs to kind of go out to market? What was that sort of, when you're looking at it now, or looking back at it, do you think they were on the money straight away? Do you think there was a lack of sales focus? Do you think, what bits would you, if you could go back in time and advise some of the altnets getting the funding, was there any sort of key bits you'd use?
It's a really good question, and I think there's quite a variety. I think we're starting to see the consolidation happen in the market, and we have done for the last year, but it's starting to accelerate a little bit. But I think if we go back a few years to when there was, maybe at the peak 100 altnets, I think varied styles there. So I think City Fibre had a very clear strategy from the start, which was wanting to go wholesale, and they've only ever been wholesale, and then wanting to get the big ISPs onto the network as well. And it was a leadership team made of people that had worked in wholesale previously, and a combination of infrastructure and investment funds, etc. And then I think looking at the other altnets, you've got combination of different ones. So some altnets very much had were run by people that just all their experience had been in infrastructure. Some where they'd been a little bit in wholesale, some where it had been in marketing, sales, marketing, and consumer brands. So I think absolutely for me, one of the biggest challenges is a lot of altnets are not wholesale ready, still aren't today. We see that in the ones that we engage with at Zen. Some are more along that journey than others. But others, went with the kind of that vertically integrated ISP, but actually we're just primarily just selling on having to be cheapest and really compete in that market without kind of looking at the broader sales and marketing strategy. So I think that but it was interesting again because most investors were just measuring on premises passed, and it was a race to get Britain fibered up.
I think we started, didn't we? We went kilometers built.
Yeah.
And then someone came in and said, no, that's a bad metric because we've got our investors' money.
Yeah.
Let's go past premises passed, because then at least we can work on a assumption that gives us a revenue, that gives us a justification for the spend.
Yeah.
And then it's probably, I don't know if this is fair, probably last year to year and a half where businesses are kind of saying, actually, shit, we need to monetize the network. Monetize the network now, as opposed to premises passed and kilometers built and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's been an interesting move, I think, in the market.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I think I saw something on LinkedIn 6 months or so ago from someone that's relatively vocal on there. And whilst I didn't agree with some of what was in the post,
I know who it'll be.
A part that I did think was quite interesting was, I think probably some in some of the altnets, and not all at all, but I think in some they were almost built and designed to be like a corporate from the start, or people have been brought in who had extensive experience in those environments, and so they perhaps became a bit too bloated too quickly, whereas it should be a little bit more of a startup and a kind of bit more energy around it, rather than having the bureaucracy and the red tape that's involved in some larger organizations. And wanting to go and challenge Openreach and BT was a big part of the altnet mentality, but some ended up falling into what would have been seen as that mentality.
It's my personal view that you'll disagree with or agree with, but I think a lot of the time when I look back on it, if you're a funder, you want leadership assurance in terms of, I'm going to give you this money, you've got credibility. So you saw someone who's done 20 years of engineering, managing MD or whatever in engineering at Virgin or any carrier, and coming over to an altnet, you've got 20 years credibility. Here's a load of money, and they'll build a structure that they're used to invariably, and the layers in there, and the sort of focuses on engineering as opposed to maybe the sales and marketing bit, because that's and it's not a criticism of them at all. It's just that's their focus, and I think we're seeing, or I'm seeing, as I suppose commentary on it, businesses now looking at, actually, we need a chief revenue sales officer for our altnet who's going to monetize it and who's got the control of it. Or, we touch on your appointment at Zen. You've seen businesses like Zen who are saying, actually, we need to be more prominent in the wholesale function. So we need a established wholesaler who understands the world and is known and is going to go out and push us into market that perhaps in the past we were more happy being in the background a little bit. So we're seeing a lot of those moving parts that probably when you made that move into Giganet, there wasn't really. There's Andy Wilson going into City Fibre as sales director. Other altnets didn't really have your sort of role in that altnet sector. It was
I agree,
boshed into a hopscotch of one wholesaler.
I completely agree with that, and I think it's back to that the infrastructure mindset as opposed to monetizing it. To your point just now, and it's probably hurt some in that, and that's why we're seeing some of the challenges that we do see today. I'm a huge advocate of what's happened in the industry in the last 5-10 years. I think the altnet thing has been fantastic for the UK, and I remember at City Fibre back, when would it be, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, the presentation that we'd roll out when we go and launch new cities was, the UK had less than 10% coverage of full fibre, and this was the vision. This is where we were against Spain and against other countries who were at 80%.
Once in a lifetime thing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So for me, I think this has been a hugely exciting moment for all of us in the industry, for Britain in general, and for me in my career, it's been great, and I've really enjoyed working at a few of those altnets and having different experience of each of them as well. But yes, I think that in terms of that driving uptake and actually having a chief revenue officer, a chief sales officer, having a plan to maximise the addressable market as well, I think that's what some lacked. So it's just very much, okay, we're going to build to 300,000 homes, and then all we're going to do is try and get to 30% penetration of those homes, without then considering there's the businesses that are passed, there's different sectors. There's education. It's like, how do you then go and leverage as public sector? So I think where City Fibre were great is from day one had that. You know, there was dark fibre asset that they sold to mobile and carriers, and to public sector. There was the Ethernet product set. There was the FTTP product set, and they had a sales director or a leader for each of those different addressable markets. So they're able to go and maximise
you're
that
seeing
footprint.
that within your, I guess, formative higher leadership years where you're kind of regionally, you're kind of seeing that structure. But then obviously you're parachuting into an environment where you're a senior figure, but a lonely senior figure in terms of the structure of the business. And then to make things really straightforward for you in your career, you touched on there, Fern Trading owned Giganet, Jurassic, and Swish.
Yeah.
Decided to, because we're in the consolidation stage now, people talk about it, but we were probably a year ago, year and a half, funders were saying, well, I've got 3 separate businesses that pretty much do the same thing, 3 different lots of everything. I'll put it together, it makes more sense. In which All Points Fibre was launched. So you found yourself going from Giganet into All Points, the accumulation of 3 altnets covering similar areas, still the South of England, but obviously a bit bigger network. Going into wholesale again. I think there was an acquisition as well of Cuckoo Residential, ISP
There was,
in the mix. How are you not as grey as me? Is my first question.
Well, I do think it has been really funny actually working. So going back to that piece of working at Internet for a long time, it was like 8 minutes from my home. It was a 9 to 5 job. You do a little bit of extra time here and there, but then going into these high investment altnet environments and being in that now for the best part of 7 or 8 years until I've recently joined Zen. It was a real change, but I'm a bit of a workaholic and absolutely love it. So, doing long nights and weekends and things just became part of the job.
How does that affect your personal? I mean, tell me to start off, but
you can ask me.
It's a challenge sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
With your work ethic, evenings, weekends. Obviously, you've got outside commitments. You're massive into your music, run businesses on that side. You've got your dog that you adore, long walk, married, idiot friends like John Igo to go walking with, all that kind of stuff. How do you put that together with the fact that you are more than happy working 7 in the morning till 10 at night, and you would do that all the time if you could?
Yeah, I would.
I
would up until last year. And I think, interestingly, again, sometimes when people say things to you that stick with you in your life, I met someone at an event, which was, I think it might have been the CNA's a year and a half back, 2 years back. And he said to me, you seem different, you've changed, you seem more serious. And I think that was at probably the peak of, we'd gone through the consolidation of APFN as well, and there's just loads going on, like late nights all the time, working weekends, another thing that we need to deliver. Don't get me wrong, really exciting, and I was really enthusiastic about it all, and I think we're working to building something exciting here and special, so it's kind of driven me. But when he said that, I did reflect, and it played on my mind actually for that evening at the dinner, because I thought, am I more serious? And then I remember speaking to my wife about it when I got home, and she said, well, yeah, because you kind of obsess over work now, and you've gone up a couple of times quite quickly in the last few years, but you look at some of what it's cost you personally. And then I think it actually came to, and this is why it's quite nice to come and do these things, and you can talk a bit openly and personally. Probably came to a head really about last Christmas. So last Christmas, where I thought, I've been working away from home now for every week for the best part of 4 years, living in staying in Portsmouth for 2.5 years, then staying in Reading, which actually was still 4 hours away from me. And my wife said to me, and at the time I'd moved from Telford to Shrewsbury, and we'd lived in the same house the whole time we'd been together, which was, very, very relatively small, kind of basic house. Just been trying to save money, pay off as much of the mortgage as I can. And then we'd moved to quite a nice area of Shrewsbury, bought a nice house. It was big step up. We kind of missed a step really in the housing ladder. And she said to me, what's the point in having this nice house and all these things and having like a nice life if you can't enjoy it? And I was like, oh, right, that really it cut deep a bit because I thought, that's and so like having to walk the dog 3 times a day by myself and do all these other things. And I reflected and I thought, yeah, my life has changed quite a lot actually. I love where my career's at and I'm really excited about it. But actually, I don't want to do it to the detriment of then not enjoying all of those things that you just said, because I'm very passionate about all those things.
A lot of resellers listen and owners and senior buds will massively relate to that, because as important a role we do in work, if there's very few people that if they left that job, the business would collapse. Whereas with your family and all those things, they're a constant, and they're probably the first thing that gets neglected. In the pursuit of a career.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, and it's something that I've learned a lot recently. And you think, I'm doing great things here and I'm earning more and I want to get this nice house and I want to do more and I can maybe retire a bit earlier and I can do some of these great things. But you're right. We're not saving lives in this industry. It's an exciting industry and I love it and I want to stay in wholesale for my whole of my career. But I am more aware, I think, now in the last year because of some of what I've been through and probably working too much to the point of losing sight of some of those other things. Like hiking, something I absolutely love. I've done it for years and years and years, but I recognised that in the last 2 or 3 years, I'd hardly been out much into the mountains, whereas it used to be when I was at Altnet, every weekend out in the mountains because I'd been in Reading or Portsmouth all week and then was doing some work at the weekend. So I think I really reflected back on
Sunday,
it.
you're looking back going, right, Sunday, have I got my stuff packed? I'm going to work Monday. I need to do this. I need to... So then your weekend becomes not 2 days, 1 day. And then Friday, you're travelling back. So actually it's Saturday and then you've got all this stuff that people you haven't spoke to and seen you need to do. So Saturday's a blur. And it's eat, sleep, rave, repeat, and
exactly
years
that.
go by.
And not spending as much time with my mom, my family, and my sisters. And unfortunately, one of my sisters has an illness, and I haven't spent as much time. I hadn't recognised I hadn't spent as much time with her in the last few years as well. So actually, I was quite fortunate that when I left APFN, I had 6 months off before joining Zen. And during that time, I kind of wrote a list of all the things that I wanted to do during that period. Some of it kind of personal and professional development, but a lot of it was make sure I spend a day a week with my mom and my sister, do these things. And we went for some really nice days out to like country manor estates and went away for a couple of nights, took my sister and my niece to Alton Towers, did like really nice things together. And actually, I think that now, coming out of that for 6 months and starting at Zen and having a much better work-life balance at Zen.
How have you controlled yourself joining Zen? So I guess... my question should have been, why did you join Zen? But before that, how do you control yourself that you've had that 6 months and that you're starting something new, exciting that you want to build, and your personality is go, let's go. What mechanism have you learned to go, right, I'm not going to go into my trap and suddenly move to Rochdale. I'm in Rochdale Monday to Friday. I'm doing this stuff. How have you been able to manage that?
So it's a really good question because it is interesting because I've been at Zen now. I celebrated 3 months a week and a half ago, or 2 weeks ago, sorry. And
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You lasted 2 months longer than I thought you would.
Hey, cheers, mate. But no, it's gone really well. And I think, so for me joining Zen, gosh, what a business. It's great. So I think it's really exciting because I've joined it and it's a very successful business. We turned over £126 million last year, and the partner division is really successful, incredibly well known in the industry. So I wasn't joining that business thinking there's lots going to come in and change or whatever else. But joining it,
why did they bring you in then?
Well, I think they absolutely want the dedicated focus on wholesale and partner. So the previous MD was across both consumer and partner. But one of the things that I thought to myself before coming in is I want to come and really understand everything about this business, lift up the bonnet, see what's going on. And I've got quite excited quite quickly about things we can optimize, things we can do differently, how we could how we can support partners a bit differently, and lots of different things across the business that I'm spotting the more time I'm there. So I have found myself getting quite enthusiastic and excited and working the late night and being on. But the difference I think is I'm doing it now because I'm really enjoying it and it's exciting. And I can see it's.
Is that what you're telling yourself to justify it?
Yeah, I am. But I haven't been. The weekend, a hard stop. Haven't been on it. I have stayed in Rochdale a couple of days a week, and so when I stay over, I'll do a little bit of work on my laptop a little bit late. But I feel like there's not because we're not investor led, and we're not having to make decisions for the next 3 months, the next 6 months. That Zen's got one of the things that's really stood out to me sitting in the kind of exco meetings is the decisions that we're making are more long term around things that will impact Zen for the next 5, 10, 15 years. Richard will keep that business forever, and it's in his will that it will go off to a trust. So there's the decisions that are being made aren't, well, we need to go and do this thing because we need to pivot for the next 3 months because we've got this fire here or whatever else. And I think for me it's quite nice to feel like you can go like you can just chill and just actually take the time to think about things. And it's very much that Rome wasn't built in a day, and it's a little bit cheesy, but we're not. I don't feel like,
Is
oh,
there a
I've got
different pace with a privately owned business as opposed to a
Yes,
private equity business wanting return on investment?
it feels more like I'm back at what internet was like, but better because Zen have got a fantastic network. We've got the fiber hub and the APIs. And I'm not going to sit here and pitch Zen because I appreciate this is more of an agnostic podcast. But genuinely, I've been thoroughly impressed.
Richard will be like, "Well done."
Yeah, I know. I got to get it in.
That's my boy.
Brought the marketing manager.
That's my boy.
But I think genuinely been really impressed with the people, the systems, the network, just everything that I imagined. But it is that. But I think also people have a perception of Zen from the outside that we are quite Zen.
So my perception, you've kind of, my ignorant perception, is the amazing customer service.
Yep.
Costs reflect that.
Yep.
Owner led.
Yep.
And no commission for salespeople.
Yeah. That's a big one.
And I struggle with the sales bit.
Yeah,
because of the commission and the getting out of bed. And it's not to say that, in wholesale you will push people down certain routes of things, but I have grown up in sales all my life. People, as much as I know the most money motivated people are also the most customer focused as well, because the two kind of go hand in hand. So I've always thought with Zen that's quite interesting, and I imagine that's the first sales leadership role you've gone into. I say sales leadership, but obviously innovate, but particularly the sales element where it's not commission based. You can't go in and go suddenly sell a Joe Blogs this, it's worth this, or I'm going to change this scheme, I'm going to maneuver this, and it's more longer term thinking. Has that been?
It is.
How have you adapted to that?
Really well, actually, and very quickly, and I'm a convert, actually. I really am.
Were you skeptical like me before?
I was a bit. Before, when reading about the role and applying for it, which is really exciting in itself. I did think that's one thing that I thought, wow, that's really unfamiliar for me and different territory. And, as much as I say like to achieve, and I have liked to achieve, of course, owning over your OTE is great and overperforming and things because it allows you to do those great things in life. But I think the one thing that with Zen is, we're incredibly ambitious and driven, and the people within the business are very passionate about the success of Zen, which I think is great. There's no egos really in the business. It's everyone's just kind of pulling in the same direction. The whole thing, our mantra around for the people and for the planet is felt across the business, and I think Richard does video vlogs to the business kind of every couple of weeks, which are really well received, and he's really close to the day-to-day in the business. That's great. And I think in just looking at the sales side itself...
Why doesn't Richard retire or live in a mansion and private jets and holidays and stuff? Because he's such an interesting character that he owns the business, 128, 129. He'll have people ringing him up all the time. Can we buy you? Can we do this? Can we do that? Obviously, you said there, he's made assurances that, the long distance future goes into a trust. When you're coming in working for someone like that, I don't know anyone else in the industry from an ownership, leadership perspective like that. I don't think there is another person who is very not driven by everyone else wants to exit, make a load of cash. If they start a reseller business, they want to grow it and maybe acquire other businesses, or if they're in our world, they want to go through funding again or an event, and make a load of cash. He's the only person that doesn't have that in his very
unique character, leader in our business, and I feel really fortunate to work for him and for Zen. Actually, I think his passion for doing right by people and planet is, as I say, it's felt across the business, and it is so genuine. He really does care about making a difference to people's lives. We have a thing called Zen in the Community, which is where we give back around to different charities across the UK. We have lots of different things that we run throughout the year. It's interesting even that some of our like board sessions that we have in Exco sessions, it's talking about ways that we can impact the environment more and how we can improve on things that we're doing. And
how does a business, because I'm probably a cynic because I'm on the outside, so I'm give me that grace. How does a business that has those core aims grow in a marketplace where normally it's a little bit dog eat dog. Certainly, you've seen with the altnets
Yeah,
where
yeah.
you've got overbuilding stuff going on in London, where there's lots of different fibre providers. There's G Networks who
Yeah.
unfortunately are administration and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. This other way, I'm not going to pay people commission as
Yeah.
a business. We're not going to pay people commission. We're going to look at charities. We're
Yeah.
going to do, but we're growing and we're acquiring customers. It's an impossible question to answer in like less than 3 hours. But
Yeah.
if you could kind of distill that down, because it's every logical element in my brain
Yeah.
is saying this should not work, but then the reality that I see is it does work.
Yeah. I think there'll be some, every different businesses will align in different ways. So, we're a B Corp and we work with other B Corp organizations, and we work with, some of the resellers that we work with are also, really passionate about the environment and things like that. But that's not to say that we're not also a commercial entity. In the last year, and this is one of the reasons why I was really excited to join Zen. In the last year, I think we've made more noise in the channel than we have in the last 3 or 4, and that's something that we speak about because of things like the Fiber Hub, the wanting to become the altnet aggregator of choice in the wholesale channel. So we understand that it's not that the Zen message isn't just about some of those things as well. There's the commercial side of it. There's the proposition that we offer. There's the Fiber Hub. There's we can be very commercially exciting and competitive in the environment.
Sometimes Zen will get a bit of a lot of because I've had kind of insight into the sort of commercial expertise. And you don't scale a business that without being commercially really astute,
exactly,
really aggressive in terms of acquiring customers. Do you think sometimes that goes under the radar? Having now you've been into the machine as opposed to my sort of ignorant view, or is that a bit unfair?
No, and I think it's a good view because I think speaking to some others in the channel is that is a view others have, and I think you hit the nail on the head before that, like great customer service, great tech support, and these are all the things that when I joined the business I thought a knack for innovation. However, I think since joining the business, what I see is that back to that point of everyone's really passionate about it. Like genuinely got some of the most driven people in the industry that I've worked with. The product and portfolio team and the network engineering team, the devs, they're all really, and like the technology teams, they're all really passionate about innovation and what's the next big thing that we can do. We're thinking about lots of great things. We're doing some really exciting things with AI at the moment. And then in the sales team as well, there is a lot of that hunger and ambition there. So I think probably just what I see part of my role and just what we're doing in the next year is how we express that to the channel and to the market, and how we shout a bit more about some of the great things that we do. And I think there are some brands out there that are fantastic at marketing and talking about lots of great things they do, but they don't maybe do them all. Not going to name who. But I think the thing with Zen is we can do so much that people probably still don't know about. And I think
so it's almost a different challenge where you've got some businesses now that have adapted and focused on the sales engine.
Yeah.
They're not focusing on the customer as much as they're refined at the front end.
Yeah.
Whereas you're seeing Zen as amazing structure, but you saw some elements at the front end as well that you're thinking, actually, we do all this great stuff. We can push that, and that's giving you that excitement.
It really has, yeah. When we've got, as I say, we've got a huge amount of capability. We've got a fantastic network. We've got 700 locally enabled exchanges with OpenReach across the UK.
Why aggregate all of the altnets? Why do that?
It's a great differentiator. I think that in terms of integrating with an altnet can be really challenging for all those reasons we spoke about before. Not all of them are wholesale ready.
Has that helped you through GigaNet All Points sort of background when you're engaging with altnets?
Yeah.
Because you've walked in their shoes, and I imagine an altnet's coming to you going, Paul, I love you. Please sell on our network.
Yeah.
What do you need?
Yeah.
And you've been in their shoes, does it help with the sort of integration conversation?
Massively helps. It's one of my favourite parts of the job. So I think my first exposure with City 5 when I did the head of regional sales role was, owning the penetration of the old Metro product across multiple regions and then carrying that through to GigaNet and All Points Fibre and then to here. So I think I know what the altnets need. I know what they're motivated by. Back to that point of why do we do it? It's really challenging to integrate with some of the altnets. Some of them are further ahead on their API journey than others. There's a window of time in the market. This year is a pivotal year. It's going to be the biggest year for FTTP. 150,000 businesses set to move to FTTP. EO FTTP is going to displace a lot of 100 meg Ethernet. So we recognise that there's this probably period of time for the next 3 to 5 years where there's an opportunity. We talk about it, we laugh about it internally because we use the phrase all the time, make hay while the sun's shining. So I think, we've got, why did we do it? Because we've got all the capability and the right people and expertise to do it. We've proven we can do it really well. We've built 4 altnets into the platform in the last 12 months, and we've got 3 more in the works for this year, if not more. So I think
Can't share any names, or you get in trouble.
I can't. I would have been there. I would have been probably close to be able to share one. But I think we have done it incredibly fast and to a great. We've done it to a great ability, so we can, ordering an altnet service in the Fibre Hub feels like ordering an OpenReach service, etc. So, and again, I'm not going to.
How do you keep the challenge of so many supplier relationships?
Yes.
So a lot of resellers that I speak to, some of them now are consolidating suppliers. So I guess part of that plays into working with someone who consolidates. But part of the reason they're refining it is because to manage 8 or 9 different suppliers with maybe slightly different SLAs, different billing bits. So I understand that bit, but how much have you guys had to go, right, we need to, we speak OpenReach, we've learned City Fibre language, we need to learn ITS language, and then we need to learn Freedom Fibre language and MS3, and how does that work from a...
It's really complex. Then we need to go back to the question on the altnets, because I want to mention something else on that. But so on that piece, and I think that's, again, another reason why we're doing it is because we've got this great platform in the Fibre Hub, and bringing them all together, so City Fibre have a different way that they build and how they manage, ready for service premises and premises passed than a Freedom Fibre do, or they truly do. Each of them have got different codes that they attribute to their premises, and whether it might need a way leave or something else. So we have teams of people internally that, their roles are work through that data, manage that data, and how do we ingest that to then ensure that we can create a journey that feels quite seamless regardless of the provider that you're ordering the service on. And as well still feels like a same Zen service. We can still support it in the same way, because some things we can't do. We can't automatically raise a fault with an altnet that we might be able to with OpenReach, but how do we then make that service still feel great and put that great Zen wrap around it? And I think the benefit for the channel is it's quite hard work to go and if you wanted to go and integrate with those altnets, there might be a lot of work to do. Some of them don't offer layer 2, some only do layer 3, some only do layer 2 and don't do layer 3. They've got different ways you have to ingest those codes, different product sets, different SLAs. So it's quite a lot to manage operationally. The cost to serve them becomes quite challenging. Whereas I think what we can offer is we take all that away. We can give you a great price point on the altnets, and we can support you to win. Which goes back to that allows me to loop it back round to.
And you can make more money as well from the altnets.
That goes back round to the part that you asked me around the altnets. So I think a big thing for me for this year and for the next few years is how we make the channel make the most of that opportunity. So and I think again with the altnets, some are very good at going and driving consumer sales through their vertically integrated brand, but they've not had a great deal of experience in B2B. We look at the footprint, and you might see that one of them, business footprint's usually a lot smaller on those big resi altnets, but there's very little to no uptake there because they've not been able to go and execute anything against it because it's all been focused on the resi sales. So I think part of what I see our role and a big part we'll play this year is we've put these altnets into the Fibre Hub, but then how do we work with the partners that have that appetite and that are motivated to go and make that most of this market opportunity for the next few years, support them and actually address their ideal customer profile across that footprint. And that's where the altnets really like it, because they're looking at it and saying, how can we get more here? And I think when I'm being able to come in and look at my hat from City Fibre, my hat from GigNet, my hat from APFN, and now at Zen. So now I'm back in a pure wholesaler, not responsible for the infrastructure.
Poacher turn gamekeeper.
Yeah, exactly. So it's on at the moment, engaged with all of our altnets around, okay, so this is what we can do in these regions. This is partners that want to work with us here. These ones are really proactive and they're quite keen to execute on a sales strategy. But here's a particular sector we might be able to do something with. And there's quite a lot of innovation going on at the moment, I think. It's really exciting. Sorry, I went on a tangent on that piece. You can tell I get excited about that.
No, this is interesting, and obviously, for me, the most important question is, if you want to come down with me, what 3 courses would you cook?
Oh wow, gosh, that's
in Shrewsbury.
What would my 3 courses be? Okay.
In your mansion in Shrewsbury.
Yeah, my mansion. It's not quite a mansion, but I do like the house. What are my 3 courses? I'll start in reverse because sticky toffee pudding would be my favourite. So I know it's like a pub classic, but that would be my favourite.
Solid.
Yeah, I'm really into anything zingy, spicy. So it would be probably some kind of massaman or Thai curry for my main. Yeah, anything.
You're doing all right so far. I think you're in the 9-10 mark from me. So
Okay,
let's see if you keep it going.
Yeah, for the starter, really tough to be honest. There's lots of different things I'd like. I'm quite a fan of like just a really good pub Scotch egg where you've got like a runny yolk in the middle. That's a very nice kind of pub classic.
With like
starter.
a mustard mayo on the
yeah. But I'm also into things like actually I took my wife out on Friday night to the pub in our village, and they do like piggy bits they call it, which is like like bits of belly pork and other bits of crackling and things with loads of like soy and spicy sauce on it. I love anything like that. So probably it'd be something like that, then the Thai curry, and then go with something indulgent.
As people can probably see, I'm a fan of food, so I like
please?
that. Yeah. Piggy bits.
I'm really hungry now.
Nah, that's amazing. I mean, it's a privilege to sit opposite. I mean, look, we could probably, and have spend hours and hours talking through your industry, your journey. We've not even touched on your crazy music taste, and hopefully maybe we'll do that another time. But I think to have started as a hotel trainee manager in Telford, kind of fast forward, not a huge amount of time, 20 years plus, not much more, to be an MD of a function, to be going out to market with strategy and all that stuff, to have made a number of choices in your career where you could have quite easily either stayed in a technical area in the background, you could quite easily have stayed in City Fibre and still be there now and still be doing what you're doing. You could still be open. You've always kind of pushed yourself, and I think anyone that's kind of listening to this will be, but also there's a cautionary tale a little bit in terms of that balance between the drive and what's important. And just because you're growing and achieving, and it doesn't mean that you sacrifice stuff, and it doesn't mean that you have to. And you've still progressed significantly, and probably not doing the crazy stuff that you were doing work-wise before. And I think it's important for people watching this to go, actually, I can achieve and progress. I don't need to kill myself to the detriment of seeing family and all that stuff.
Not at all, no. And thank you. That's really appreciate that. It's nice, and it's been great. I think that taking risks is a big piece, and I do think it's you can build a great career, and if and it's interesting. Like my wife and I talk about this a lot because she's just really happy doing the job that she does. Gets to just do 9 to 5, clock out. It's just like things on the side for charities and bits like that that she's really passionate about, and really happy to do that. But if you want to do something where you might want to go up or do something else, and I think taking that risk and things that make you feel uncomfortable. So it's a bit, I always think about it when you go and do a live presentation in front of an audience of a few hundred people, you always get a little bit the butterflies and nervousness and anticipation before you go on stage, and that's natural. You should feel like that. And I think those last few roles that I've gone into before starting them, I've always had that feeling of a little bit of nervous apprehension, but you get into it and it goes well. And one thing that I do think I would share, but if anyone's interested, I think kind of preparation as well. I know it's that classic thing of failure to prepare is preparing to fail. But a good example is before joining Zen, in that 6 months that I had off, whilst I did do a lot of personal things, I also worked with a executive leadership coach, which I just paid for off my own bat over the 6 months, which I had sessions with every 3 weeks. I read a couple of books that would help me get into the right mindset for the role. So I do think that that's really important as well. I think just having the thinking time and the preparation time before you go and do something, especially before you go and make a big move, like a big career move.
So you can't win the lottery. You can't win the lottery without buying a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. North.
Pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Thank
Cheers,
you.
pal.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you very much.
He's no longer Sir Paul North. He is Lord North of Shrewsbury. Absolutely loved that session. I could probably spend another 10 hours talking with him through wholesale partners, the amazing altnet market we're seeing, all the changes there, the work he's doing at Zen, the work he's done previously, working in businesses with private equity, working in small businesses acquired, constantly progressing, sort of lessons learned as well. I think I've resonate a lot with me in terms of work-life balance and the important things, and progressing but not sacrificing relationships and the importance of life. So I really enjoyed that, and I know North, you won't mind me saying this, if the people want to reach out, be it people want to work with Zen, or if they want to just understand his journey and advice or tips, and they want to progress to the sort of levels he's at, he'll always be open to those conversations. So I'd always check him out. But thank you very much for listening and watching, and I'll look forward to catching up with you all next time. Thank you.